Hey guys, Jessica Chen here. So, when we think about the year 2020, we're going to remember it as the year where remote work became front and center for a lot of businesses. But what's the big idea for 2021? Well, I predict in 2021, companies are not only going to have adapted to remote working, but they're going to want to level up how they engage with others on video remotely. Companies like Facebook, Twitter, Shopify, they've already announced that working remotely will be permanent in some capacity in their business. So even if you are back to normal, if you're engaging with other businesses that are still remote, you're still going to have to jump on a video call with them, which means for you, you're still going to need to learn how to communicate well on video. So here at Soulcast Media, we teach people exactly this. We teach them how to develop that executive presence and public speaking skill on video. So I'm very excited to be here on Prezi with you today to teach you what you need to know to engage and better engage with others in online meetings. So what I'm going to talk with you about today is the 3 things you need to know when it comes to online meetings. And these are the 3 things. What do you do when you are leading a live discussion? What do you do when you're giving a presentation? And what do you do when you're in these one-on-one online meetings? And depending on the scenario you're in, you're going to want to think about it a little differently. So let's dive into it. The first scenario you may find yourself in these online meetings is you leading a live discussion, meaning there are tons of people on this live call with you. So what do? Well, the challenge that you may find yourself in this situation is that it's hard. It's hard to get people to participate. It's also hard to keep things productive and engaging because there's just so many people. But what can you do? Here's some solution. The first thing you want to think about is establishing rules and cues. So this means if you're the one that's scheduling this meeting, you letting everybody know, hey, if you have a question, just wave your hand in front of the camera, and that's a signal, a cue for everybody to know that you have something to say instead of chiming in and talking over the other person. Create an agenda to keep things on track. If you know what you want to talk about in this meeting, writing it down and sending it out to everybody prior to the meeting not only will allow people to make sure that they're staying on track, you're also able to stay on track because you're following an agenda. The next thing is your Q&A submission. So sometimes people don't say much. They don't participate in these meetings because they don't know when they should chime in and ask a question. But if you ask them to submit their questions prior to the meeting, you can ensure that their concerns and their questions will still be addressed. Ask pointed questions. So what this means is sometimes people are afraid to say something. But if you are the one leading this discussion, it is perfectly fine for you to say, hey, John, what do you think? Hey Betty, what's your thought on this? The DIS intention. That means if you are scheduling this live discussion, make it crystal clear why this meeting has happened. What's the outcome that you want to achieve? Are you trying to get a decision? Are you trying to get everyone's feedback? Or are you trying to get people's input? Be very clear about that early on. But ultimately, it's all about putting your moderator hat on, taking a proactive approach, ensuring that the meeting is staying on track and that everyone is engaging the best they can. The next thing you're going to find yourself potentially in is scenario 2. You are giving a presentation. The challenge with this is, well, it's hard for people to retain information because you're the only one talking. It's also challenging for you to maintain that continuous energy when you're presenting because you can't see anybody. It's also hard to keep their attention because, again, you're the only one talking. So what are some solutions in this type of video scenario? Interactions via things like poll. Pulling up polls in the middle of your public speaking or your presentation is a great way for people to pay attention to you again. The second thing is leaving room for discussion with pointed questions. Because you're the only one talking, people are still going to have questions. So make sure that you always leave room at the end, 10-15 minutes, to ask and address anybody's concerns. Share the takeaway up front and at the end. And because when it comes to presenting, you're just throwing a lot of really good information out, but it's still hard for people to remember. So making sure that you're clear about it at the beginning and tying it back at the end is a great way for people to be like, that's right. That's what Jessica was talking about, and that was the most important part about her presentation. Next is your visual and audio variety. Basically, it means because when we're talking on video, oftentimes we're just a small box on the screen, or it's really hard for people to see you. So you want to use your tone of voice to make sure that you are engaging them in the process. Tag, team, collect, and compile questions. So if you're presenting and you want people to ask you questions, but not have them ask the question as you're presenting, cue them and say, if you have questions, drop it in the chat function and have your colleague compile the questions so once you're done, you can be more succinct in answering their concerns. But ultimately, it's keeping your slides simple and utilizing your body language and your tone of voice. So that means think like a radio DJ, because radio DJs have a lot of different inflections. They have changes in their rate of speaking, their tone, and that's strategic because that's what keeps these public speaking presentations engaging. So you have to think that way as well. The third scenario you may find yourself in these online meetings is the one-on-one meetings. The challenge is it's sometimes hard to look at the speaker because you're just focused on you seeing yourself on the screen. The other challenge is building that trust and connection with the other person because, hey, we're not there in person with them. So some solutions to this is you always want to think about, if you can, to pin the other person's video when you're in these one-on-one meetings so that when they're talking or when you're talking, they are still the ones taking up your screen, and so you can focus on them. The other thing you want to think about is leaving room for small catch-up to build that connection. Yes, because we're not able to be there in person, it is harder, but that doesn't mean we cannot engage in small talk of how things are going to, again, build that rapport that's needed in any sort of interaction with folks. The other thing you want to think about is reiterating your clear objective. If you're scheduling this one-on-one meeting, to also be clear, hey, we're jumping on this meeting because I want to accomplish us making a decision. I want to get your input. I want to get your feedback. Being very clear about that can ensure that your online meetings are engaging. But ultimately, just remembering, impressions, they're always being made. So even if you're in this one-on-one meeting with somebody that you already know, just always remember to bring your best foot forward for that 30-minute or 1-hour meeting. And once that meeting's over, you can relax. But just remember that impressions are still being made, and when you're on video, that doesn't make a difference either. So when it comes to online meetings, remembering the 3 scenarios: how you can lead a discussion, how you can give a presentation, and how you can better enhance your one-on-one meetings. These are the 3 things you always want to think about and how you should adapt to that scenario. Ultimately, it matters in 2021 because I believe companies are wanting to level up their online video. So for you also want to think about what you can do to strategically position yourself to not only develop that executive presence on video, but to really become a really good leader when it comes to video calls. So I want to just thank Prezi for inviting me to give this presentation for you guys to teach you what you need to know to better engage in these video meetings. I think this is the big idea for 2021, and I hope you think so too. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I always talk about communication strategies. You can find me by typing in my name, Jessica Chen, or Soulcast Media. Thank you so much for listening. I will connect with you guys soon. Bye.